chew bubble gum, and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It is Thursday. It is February the 8th, the year of our Lord 2018. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it is great to see you and you and you and you and you and you and all of you back. Snowball is gonna be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right. And the reason I say that, you see, is because if you're listening, just listening right now, you're listening on the SHR Media Network. You're probably on the page shrmedia.com. With luck, you're in the chat room. Listen live. Click that. You'll go right over to the chat room. Doesn't cost you a damn thing. Just go in there. You got to create some kind of a username and password. But what the hell? You have to create a username and password to get out your damn door in the morning, don't you? Pretty much. Anyway, right? Of course. So what I mean by this is you can also, if you're listening on shrmedia.com. You can watch on Facebook Live. Used to be able to watch on YouTube. Not so much no mo. So go over to the SHR Media Facebook page. We're live right now. You can actually see what this fat arsehole looks like. Just like this. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the damn toilet. Jiggle the handles so that the water bill doesn't skyrocket. And don't forget to tip your waitress. Let's look and see if there are folks in chat. There very well may be. Well, look at this. Yes, there are. There are some esteemed underworld folks here tonight. We have the Dave Milner, one and only. We have the Mary Brockman, one each, who has her own chair. And, of course, we reserved it just for you, Mary. You can always tell it's your chair. It's the one with your name on it. And Mike. So welcome to Mike. Welcome, one and all. And you know how to get into the chat room. You know how to listen live. You know how to watch. And tonight, for those of you who are watching, I am wearing the very first brand new shirt today that BZ got. Got it at the thrift store. Hey, okay, $2, Segunda, and it fits. And I thought I'd be a little festive today. It's a little warm out there. Now, the East Coast, I don't know what kind of temperatures you guys are grappling with. Oh, and one viewer. Hello to one viewer. You will not be unmasked. I'm pointing to you right now, and you may feel the pressure. I'm not sure. But you will not be unmasked here at the saloon. We don't do that like the Demorats do or the other administration did. We don't do that. That's uncool, way uncool. So, in any event, it was 75 here today in blustery Fornicalia, where I broadcast behind enemy lines in occupied California, or as I call it, Fornicalia. So 75 here. I wonder what it was up in D.C. I really don't know. I'm guessing cool. What was it on the East Coast? I'm guessing cool. What was it in Chicago? I'm guessing probably damn cool. Although we have been getting snow in the Sierra Nevadas. Up at my house, I've only gotten one fairly decent snowfall yet. And because it's California, guess what happens? We just went through a drought. Now, we had a really wet winter. Obviously not this one, but the last winter, we had a pretty damn wet winter. And everybody said, huzzah, huzzah, the drought is ended. No. In California, the drought has not ended, which is why old BZ is, again, looking and waiting and tapping his toe and can't wait to get the fuck out of California. If for no other reason than A, it sucks, and B, this is what we do here. We go through droughts. And I have water up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, but guess where all of my water goes? Down to the valley. That's right. And then where does it go? It goes south. And in what fashion does it go south? Oh, it goes south to Los Angeles. So all the illegals and all the leftists can drink my water. That reminds me of the line, oh, God, if I had a producer, I would have thought about this, but it just comes into my brain. I would have had a producer play that line from the movie about oil. I drink your milkshake. Yeah. Okay. So there's, again, this is, I think I wrote in chat that it's a 35 tab night. That's how I can tell what kind of a night it's going to be, how much stuff I have. And again, just like Tuesday, I had so much stuff to talk about. I truly did not get to a fraction of it. I'm sure I will not get to a fraction of this today. And it's getting more difficult, show by show, to triage everything, to figure out what do I need to talk about, what do I want to talk about, what's important, and what I'm going to have to leave behind. I always, especially these days, I have to leave something behind. As of January 17th of last month, that was my 1-year anniversary on the SHR Media Network, so congratulations and thanks to Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint for hiring me with my shameless contract. Yeah, shameless, indeed. But there are priorities here tonight. And I have a whole bunch of stuff lined up. I wish I could show you what this silly computer looks like, because this thing, I'm sure it feels throttled. The computer's probably going, God, why do you do this to us? We're only an old Sony. You're killing us here. Because I've got so much crap set up on it. Poor thing. I do feel sorry for it. Because that is much older than the one that I'm looking at right here, which is the new HP that I purchased for the SHR Media Network. Oh, and tomorrow, I'm going to be really curious to see how this works. This microphone right here is a Shure SM7B. The microphone that BZ broadcasts across the room over there, which is the one I talk into when it's Sackhead's time on Wednesday. That's a Shure 55S. That's a very classic elder microphone. And then right next to it on the breaks, you see the old RCA microphone that I have. And that's actually from KFBK when I was broadcasting. That's a true, honest-to-God relic. That's from the 1940s. And I don't use that much because it's led a tough life. And I keep that kind of as backup. But what I purchased was a 486S audio processor, and it should be here tomorrow. Now, the reason I mentioned this mic and the mic over there that I talk on during Sackheads is because these are both dynamic microphones. And they have particular patterns to them to capture speech. This one doesn't do real well behind. It's mostly a pattern shaped to the front. The Shure over there has a different pattern to it and can capture a whole lot more, essentially. That's patterned after the one that basically Elvis Presley used in the 50s to sing into, and it became a real icon of its time. But these are dynamic microphones. Dynamic microphones are generally known as underpowered. So this one has phantom power. That one has phantom power. We run phantom power through the board. As a matter of fact, you know what? I have not looked at the board to see what kind of levels I have here. I've been just a little bit low. Okay, that's better. Now I can go back to that. In any event, I got a signal processor purchased, which should be here tomorrow, which you can get into, and basically it's an equalizer. I mean, you can ramp down the bass, you can ramp up the bass, the highs, the mid-range, all sorts of stuff that you can do with that. So when it gets here between now and Tuesday or Wednesday, we're going to have Sackhead Sean and I are going to have to come in here and sit down and kind of tweak things a little bit. I'm hoping that for that amount of money, it will produce a better sound that you can actually hear. One of the things that I have to say that I'm proud of is having brought a much better sound to SHR. That was my goal. That was my job. And I told Dave today this, and Mary Brockman says it's all Greek to me. Well, that's true. I get it. But I wanted to equal out all the sound so that you would hear the commercials during Sackheads or during my show on a much more even level. And the guy that creates the commercials now and edits them all together in Audacity is the last person that you would expect in SHR. Obviously, it's not Clint. Everyone would think that it's Sean. But it's not Sean. It's the fat guy right here. So I'm very happy with the way the sound is in the SHR side of it here in the SHR studios. Everybody else inputs their sound much differently, especially when they create promos. So I'm really happy with having been here for a year in SHR. I'm really happy with having something to do with, in my opinion, making the physical sound better when you listen. And I don't know what you guys do. I listen to each and every show at the end of the night because that's my prime time for sitting down and blogging. And that's when I write up my posts and post the show and whatnot. And even when I listen in my own room, in my own office, I have headphones on because I want to hear with headphones what you guys hear on your end if, for example, you were wearing headphones. Now, I'm curious, does anybody in chat happen to wear headphones when you listen to the show? My guess would be probably not, but I'm kind of a weird stickler about that. But what I discovered was this, especially in 16, is that some of the folks I didn't think, and I was right, it turns out, don't listen to the show afterwards to figure out where it is that we can improve. And I would listen to every show and figure out, okay, that sucks, that's terrible, I need to do this. I am my worst critic. I try to criticize each and every show. I try to minimize the ums and the uhs, words that are unnecessary. It's tough to do. But that having been said, I got a much better grasp on where it is that SHR needs to improve, particularly in the studio. So if there's one thing that BZ feels that he's accomplished a bit, is making the studio here sound a little bit better. And we've got good equipment. We've got a hella good brand new board. We got that laptop that's directly in front of us. This little boy over here, I'm not sure how long he's going to last. Okay, before we get into the real meat of the matter, and like I said, oh my God, it's like, where do I start? I was listening to the American media maggots today crow and cry and wail and breastbeat, etc. about, the stock market, just when Donald John Trump is telling everyone how magnificent he is. Well, his little stock market tanks. So blow me, Donald John Trump. That's essentially what the American media maggots are saying. Well, wait. And I say wait to you as well. This is a correction. That's all it is. And then if you look at the numbers, okay, and the numbers were, we lost 1,000 points. I think it was Monday. We got them almost all back. There were 1,000 points, 1,100 or so lost recently. Today, 500 of them came back. In toto, I think we lost 1,000 or 1,500 points. And let's see, where does that put us as the Dow? Oh, that puts us right back in November of last year. That's 2.5, 3 months ago. That's all it does. I can remember, picking the brain, I can remember when the stock market was the Dow was at 17,000. It was at 25. And it kind of ballooned up. And everybody that knows anything about the stock market knows, yeah, okay, Trump got some good press out of it. Well, not that much because of maggots themselves. Had to make sure that they didn't cover that aspect. But they sure as shit did cover the fact that, the stock market is crashing. Blow me again. It's not crashing, it's a correction. If it was actually crashing, now BZ would in fact be shitting Twinkies, because I've invested heavily in the stock market. Let's just say BZ is comfortable in terms of cash. I'll leave it at that. But if you remember, I may have told you here, I don't know if you were listening those particular days, BZ got into investing in the stock market very, very early. My dad did a lot of great things for me. One of the great things he did was, back when there were newspapers, we'd sit down, and I was, 7, 8, 9, and we did it for quite some time. He would sit down and go through the back pages of, I think, the B or the C section, and he'd say, let's look at stocks. And he'd explain stocks to me. And he'd say, okay, now you start choosing some stocks. And at that time, I was making a wage. I was mowing lawns, and I was getting an allowance of about 25 cents, 50 cents, something like that. But I would go out, and I was working. I was throwing newspapers. In Ohio, I was shoveling snow. Wherever the hell it was, I've had a Social Security number since the late 50s. Don't say anything about that. Anyway, I've worked all my life as a kid, and throwing newspapers at the time was very lucrative. So in terms of lucre, I had a couple of Greckles to scratch around, and that's how I got into the stock market and figured out, here's how I can invest, here's where I want to invest. And if you want to do anything about the stock market at all, and I'm not an active investor, but I do play long ball. And so for those people whose brows are dripping with sweat now because, oh my God, everything is going to come to a massive crash. No, it ain't. This is a correction. It'll correct again. I think perhaps that's time now for this section, because we do have some good things to talk about tonight.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's one of the first of them. When I saw this picture, first I saw this on television, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting idea, until I looked at the photograph. And I thought, oh, my God, BZ's heartstrings don't get plucked. I could say that BZ is kind of like the Foreigner song sometimes, cold as ice. Not a real emotional cat. But when I saw that photograph that I'm looking at right now, I almost went, oh. Meet Lucas, the first Gerber baby with Down syndrome. And there's a photograph over here if you haven't seen it yet. And I would actually highly recommend that you go see the photograph of this kid, because if they're ever a cute kid, this guy's it. Lucas Warren, an adorable baby with Down syndrome, has been selected as the newest Gerber spokesbaby. The announcement came this morning on the Today Show, and according to the NBC show, the 1-year-old from Dalton, Georgia, is the first child with Down syndrome to be named a Gerber baby since the contest start more than 90 years ago. The iconic charcoal sketch logo on Gerber's packaging was originally a sketch of Ann Turner Cook when she was 4 months old. She became a Gerber baby back in 1928, according to Inside Edition. So this is on, let's see, where's this? You can go into your favorite search engine and find the photograph. I think I can pretty much guarantee that when you see the photograph, you too will go, oh. Here's another good one. And the reason I wanted to go into happy stories and good times. U.S. jobless claims dropped to near 45-year low. Washington. The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits unexpectedly fell last week, dropping to its lowest level in 45 years as the labor market tightened further, bolstering expectations of a faster wage growth this year. So, you may not think this goes hand in hand, but this does go hand in hand with what happened in the stock market today. When unemployment goes down, wages tend to rise. When wages rise, the reason that a lot of the big old investors that like to trade lots of crap day to day, these folks, let me tell you one thing that you may or may not know. The stock market is an indicator of essentially nothing more than emotion. So you could kind of distill everything down about the stock market on most every index to the fact that most every stock market all across the world is run by emos. And they won't tell you that. They won't admit it, but it's primarily true. The stock market reacts emotionally to what they perceive things to happen, and they attempt to prognosticate 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road. When you have low unemployment, which is good for peeps, then wages rise. What happens is that then you start to have a little bit of inflation. And we haven't had much inflation, have we, ladies and gentlemen? Because for the past 8 years, we have not even managed to break through that 3% GDP. Well, that 3% GDP is broken. So now that the I word came out, all the emos in the stock market the past week have all gone, we have a new Fed chair. Janet Yellen is gone. What are we going to do? What are they going to do? That's what happens. But the good news is, folks, more people are employed these days than it has been in 45 years. I think, quite frankly, that's a hell of an accomplishment. Now, I told you last Tuesday, and I didn't go into the story, but because this does, in fact, range under Happy Stories and Good Times, I figured, well, I didn't know that much about it, so I think I'll bring it into the saloon tonight. Adam Schiff pranked by Russians who offered nude photos of Trump. Now, roll with me on this because some of the other stories that I'm going to go into later on in the show, not far from now. Linkage, folks. Linkage. It's all about the linkage. Russians. Remember? Russians? Roll with me on this. That's all I'm asking. This happens to be from the Washington Examiner. Representative Adam Schiff, the ranking Demorat on the House Intelligence Committee, was pranked last year by Russian comedians who offered nude photos of President Trump. Schiff thought he'd been speaking with Ukrainian politician Andriy Parubly, who was offered potentially explosive information about Trump's visit to Russia during the Miss Universe pageant in 2013, The Atlantic reported. Schiff cautioned the man that our Russian friends could be eavesdropping on the call and told him not to share anything he wouldn't want them to hear. But the man went on to say that the Russians had pictures of naked Trump, and Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted Trump to know that, quote, all those compromising materials will never be released if Trump will cancel all Russian sanctions. The California Demorat, however, had actually been speaking with Vladimir Kutasov and Alexei Stolyarov, two Russian pranksters known as Vovan and Lexus. Hey, everybody's heard of Vovan and Lexus, right? Now, this is the time I should go in with a rim shot, like, dun. But, hey, only if I had a producer, right? So he bit. Devin Nunes bit. And so he got pranked by Russians. Here's another bit of buttery stupidity, since I'm on a stupid roll, so to speak, from about Devin Nunes. And this is from thedailywire.com. And it says, Adam Schiff claims Russia has a plan to get Americans to kill each other. Oh, wait a minute. If I only had a producer, I could do this. And this is when I end up bigfooting myself, right? And Adam Schiff said this. Yeah, the problem with that in terms of timing is I have to go to another damn screen. So that's very sad. Democrat Republican Adam Schiff suggested that the Russian government promoted the Second Amendment on social media during the 2016 presidential election to encourage Americans to kill each other. Now, what kind of a fucktard do you have to be to believe stuff like that? Well, the answer is a Demorat, quite frankly. Schiff made his latest absurd remarks last week at a University of Pennsylvania event where he claimed that Russians were posting content, quote, designed to pit us against each other to exploit our divisions. Stop. Who's been exploiting divisions for the past 8 years? Oh, it's the folks on Adam Schiff's team in terms of identity politics, facts in evidence, and Captain Obvious. Come on, you can step into the room now, and you can have a chair right over there if you want. Okay, great. Good to see you, Captain. They also trumpeted the Second Amendment, Schiff said. Apparently, the Russians are very big fans of our Second Amendment. They don't particularly want a Second Amendment of their own, but they're really glad that we have one. The Russians would be thrilled if we were doing nothing but killing each other every day. And sadly, we are. Let's see, where's Murder Central these days? Anybody have an idea about that?
But we can see, for example, on Facebook, so graphically what I was mentioning earlier, the multiple aims of the Russians and their interference in our elections. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, on Facebook you had the content that was clearly anti-Hillary, and you had the content that was very pro-Trump. But even the bigger quantity...
On Facebook? Facebook is, as everyone knows, Facebook is right-wing conservative central, according to Adam Schiff.
...of content that was being pushed through social media was just content designed to pit us against each other, to exploit our divisions.
Right.
So, of course, they, as you have seen, they parroted Black Lives Matter to try to broaden the racial divide in this country. Fascinatingly, they also trumpeted the Second Amendment. Apparently, the Russians are very big fans of our Second Amendment. They don't particularly want a Second Amendment of their own.
Now, you did hear the giggles in the background, like...
but they're really glad that we have one.
Right.
The Russians would be thrilled if we were doing nothing but killing each other every day, and sadly, we are.
Thank you, Adam. Good man you are. Because when we come back after the break, just when it's Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, conservatives, Russia, Trump, Russia, conservatives, Russia, oh, and that Mueller is going to unearth all of that Russian collusion with Trump, just when you think that happens, then this is why this is so glorious. I have to tell you, it's all so glorious because there's a new story every day, and it's not pro-Demorat that gets released. And it shows and tends to prove, as I've said since November 9th of 2016, that the only people that are colluding around in the United States, I wonder where they are. Who are they?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch River Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it
again. Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? Just like the last question that you really cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And you are, in fact, listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin right here on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. And you can watch live on the SHR Media Facebook page. Everything changes, and more stories pop out day by day by day. And if you were watching Twitter, I made reference in a video and also a tweet and a post on Facebook that the bodies are starting to fall. And again, if I had a producer, I'd be playing the song Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, because the bodies are, in fact, hitting the floor. But I preface by saying, I'll bet you didn't hear about this. And I'll bet you didn't hear about this on, sadly, Fox News. And you're sure as shit not going to hear about it on any of the other alphabet channels, are you? Which is another reason that you come here, because I dig up this stuff to present to you so that you can have a better understanding of what's happening in all its political... Stop that. See, that's what happens when you hit a wire over there. In all its buttery political goodness, more and more stuff is happening, and it's all deleterious to the Demorats and the American media maggots. More bodies have hit the floor, 2 in the past 2 days. And you know who they are? And you know what they do? And whom they represent? I bet you don't. 2 more officials cited in FBI texts stepped down. The FBI's media chief and the head of the Justice Department's anti-espionage section are both departing. 2 more senior government officials who were prominently discussed in text messages exchanged by FBI personnel formerly assigned to the Trump-Russia investigation are leaving their positions. Mike Cortan, FBI Assistant Director for Public Affairs, is set to retire next week, an FBI spokeswoman confirmed. In addition, this is incredibly telling when I reveal to you what this guy does. In addition, the chief of the Justice Department's Counterintelligence and Export Control Section, David Loffman, resigned this week, a department spokesman said. Okay, not just this week. This guy resigned yesterday. And what do you think is coming? I have a pretty good idea. Let's see, what's that quote in the movie? And hell is coming with me? I think this guy could hear and smell hell coming after him. Both men are discussed in text messages sent by senior FBI agent Peter Strzok and FBI attorney Lisa Page. President Donald Trump and many Republican lawmakers have argued that the texts are evidence of anti-Trump bias at senior levels of the Justice Department and the FBI. While the texts contain derogatory mentions of Trump, the messages made public thus far don't attribute that sentiment to Cortan or Loffman, and there's no indication that either departure is related to the recent flap. Until you do what I call the logical extension. And that's why I'm here, to do it for you. Now, when this guy, Loffman, happens to be involved in counterterrorism, let's go back and just sift this out. Where was Peter Strzok? He was in counterterrorism, was he not? He was actually an assistant director for that in counterterrorism, which is not a true directorship, but he's a helper. He's an assistant, so to speak. Now, when you go and acquire, you use, say, for example, a crazy, wacky example, when you use the Russian dossier by Christopher Steele, paid for by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and you use that in the FBI to go and acquire a FISA warrant. And let's see, it's also Peter Strzok who interviewed Hillary Clinton, and I think he also interviewed Michael Flynn, and I think he also had a hand in crafting the memo by, air quotes, by James Comey, which exonerated Hillary Clodham. Maybe I'll keep that. Hillary Clodham Clinton. I'm sorry. I apologize. He helped to craft the memo that exonerated Clodham Clinton a month before James Comey decided that he was going to puff up his chest and put himself out in the public airwaves to crow about that and list all the reasons why she should be indicted, and then decided not to do it. Let's see, he had his hand in there as well. But you might want to ask yourself, how or why is it that the DOJ, what's their end in all of this? Well, counter-surveillance. The affidavit tried to indicate that there's bad counterterrorism stuff going on across the pond by way of Carter Page, and he's a bad guy. And so we just happened to catch some of his stuff, and oh, look, it's Carter Page is leading back here, and Donald John Trump and the Trump Tower, and oh, isn't he a presidential candidate? So when it comes back to that, and you make a deal, for example, and you try to speak to, I don't know, Carter Page, or you talk to anybody else and the FBI says, you know what, we'll do a deal with you, and we'll negotiate, and we'll decide that you will, if you talk to us, if you chat with us, we'll cut a deal, and we'll give you immunity for X, Y, and Z, if you spill all you know, does the FBI have the ability to grant immunity? And the answer is no. It's the DOJ who does it. So, do you think that maybe this guy in counter surveillance had some of his fingerprints on the affidavit that was utilized by the FBI? And do you think maybe he saw some hell coming? My guess would be definitely in the affirmative. But we talked, remember I said, we heard all about Russian Trump stuff going on, and I think it's probably time I turn off my phone because I don't need to hear it cling in here. Here's something kind of interesting that we just discovered about the Demorats just recently. And it's kind of like this. Demorat Senator Mark Warner texted with Russian oligarch lobbyist in effort to contact dossier author Christopher Steele. Wait a minute. Isn't that exactly what they're saying that Trump and all of the other people surrounding the Trump campaign did?
Who sued Paul Manafort over a failed business deal, has information to share with the U.S.
Let's start at the start.
Last year with the lobbyist for a Russian oligarch who offered him access, to...
Okay. Let's see if we can start at the start. And will you guys let me start at the start? No, you're not. Let's see if you will. Let me see if I can kind of jump in here a little bit. Nope, you're not going to let me do it.
Last year with the lobbyist for a Russian oligarch who offered him access, to Christopher Steele. Now, Warner texted he would, quote, rather not have a paper trail in case he could not seal an agreement with the former British spy. Steele has still not agreed to...
Warner didn't want a paper trail because he didn't want what he was doing known. That seems pretty obvious, doesn't it?
Interview with the panel. Warner began texting with the lobbyist, Adam Waldman, in February 2017 about brokering a deal with the Justice Department to get the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, to the U.S. to potentially face criminal charges. That went nowhere, though Warner's office tells me he turned over whatever information he got to the FBI in that matter. Mm-hmm. Warner and Waldman also exchanged dozens of texts about possible testimony from Waldman's primary client, the Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaska, who had his visa revoked by the State Department in 2006 because of charges he has organized crime ties, which he denies. Warner was intent on connecting directly with Christopher Steele without anyone else being in the loop, at least initially.
And he wanted to hide it. Okay, so again, let's go back. Senator Mark Warner, the top Demorat in the Senate Intelligence Committee, who has been leading a congressional investigation into President Trump's alleged ties to Russia, had himself extensive contact last year with a lobbyist for a Russian oligarch who was offering Warner access to former British spy and dossier author Christopher Steele, according to text messages that were obtained by Fox News. One of the messages was this: we have so much to discuss. You need to be careful, but we can help our country. Warner texted the lobbyist, Adam Waldman, on March 22nd, 2017. And this is the guy that was the mouthpiece, the go-between to the Russians. I'm in, Waldman, whose firm has ties to Hillary Clinton, texted back to Warner. Steele famously put together the anti-Trump dossier of unverified information that was used by FBI and Justice Department officials in October of 2016 to get a warrant to conduct surveillance of former Trump advisor Carter Page. Despite the effort, Steele has not agreed to an interview with the committee. Now, we talk about, and I encountered intelligence like this. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are getting really sick of this, the dossier, the memo, all of that. But I have to tell you up front, I'm not giving up on this stuff because new information gets revealed almost every day, certainly by the week, and definitely by the month, indicating more and more that it is the Demorats that are in collusion, if you like to use that word and bandy it about, with the Russians. The only collusion was on behalf of the Demorats. So you want to know what? I can sum it up. I can sum it all up. And then I'm going to go into another story that you're going to find absolutely astounding when I tell you what happened. Here's what really happened in 2016 and the election time, before and after. And I can summarize it in this sort of a nutshell. Hillary Clinton actually went out and she bought a warrant to spy on a private person and an entire presidential campaign. Okay, I'm done. I can wipe my hands. That's it. We're free and clear. That's what actually occurred. In summary, now with that in mind, and you knew it already, but I just summed it up in a couple of sentences for you. A new article from the Daily Caller. You remember Peter Strzok? This is absolutely astounding. This is brain glazing because he Bigfooted himself in a text. And the article goes like this. Here's the headline. Strzok may have used his cell phone in a skiff, himself breaking classified info rules. Now, stop. What is a skiff? I've mentioned this to you before. It's a secure, compartmentalized information facility. It can be an actual room that you walk into. It can be, depending on who you talk to or don't talk to, it can be a device that's portable, but essentially it's a room or an area that is completely isolated from everything else, where you go, for example, the congressmen, the representatives, the senators who wanted to read the memo before it was released had to do it in a skiff. They had to sign their names. They read the memo. You cannot bring a cell phone inside. You're not supposed to. Imagine that. And you read something. You don't take anything away from it. You don't copy it. You don't do anything in it. And it's supposed to be able to isolate the various secure and classified documents that, for whatever reason, you have need to read and understand. That's what a skiff is. Released texts between Peter Strzok, the FBI agent who ran the investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's email server, and his paramour lover, FBI attorney Lisa Page, reveal the strong possibility that Strzok used his cell phone in a skiff, a strict violation of protecting classified information. Stop. Now, you may say to yourself, BZ, didn't you work for the feds at one time? And BZ would reply, why, yes, I did. And you might ask BZ, do you know what a skiff is? And BZ would reply, yeah, I know exactly what it is. So hypothetically, BZ, if you happened to do something like this and transmit with your cell phone information or utilize it in a skiff, what would happen to you? Well, what would happen is, especially if I outed myself through texts that were discovered, it could range everything from severe censure, days on the beach, monetary loss, up to and including losing my job, and then potentially being prosecuted criminally, and then possibly prosecuted civilly, depending upon the prevailing prairie winds, the political prairie winds of the federal government at the time. And the AUSA, depending on who it was, whether they liked me or despised my ass, would have a great deal to do with how that case was handled. I.e., guy in a Navy submarine who took a photograph to send to his girlfriend, and he's doing federal time right now. Peter Strzok, what a great guy. Such a breach would compromise Strzok's ability to probe Clinton for mishandling classified info and show a lack of awareness about security breaches, which is what he was tasked to investigate. The text messages that the Senate released yesterday, show that Strzok texted his mistress on August 11th, 2016. And it says this, we're in Jim's skiff. Jimmy. Let's see. Strzok worked for the FBI. He's making a reference to Jim. We're in Jim's skiff. He's saying that he's currently in a skiff, and yet he's actually texting in a skiff. Jim. Who would Jim be? Skiff stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, and it is where the most sensitive classified material is kept and stored. SCIFs strictly bar all electronic equipment and require all people to place their phones in lockers before entering, which apparently Peter Strzok did not do. The lead-up to Strzok's visit to Jim's skiff took place around meetings at the Department of Justice. Strzok said he had meetings at DOJ at 4 and then Baker 4:30. Hours later, Page responds, "Can you and redacted woman come up and see me when you're done? Is redacted woman with you? Can you please come up here? Walking to see JB. She is still in 4017. Strzok texted in response at 4:31 p.m. We're in Jim's skiff. Strzok texted 5 minutes later. JB Jim may refer to Jim Baker, then the FBI's general counsel, and a close ally of then FBI Director Jim Comey. James Warashuk, a retired Air Force colonel, senior career strategic intelligence officer and National Security Council staffer, told the Daily Caller News Foundation that cell phones are strictly prohibited in the skiff. You just don't do it. And most places, they'll make sure you don't have one on you to not only bring it in, but actually use it. I can't fathom that, he said. And then to be texting your girlfriend, you're not allowed to even use it for official government use. This is the same guy that Bob Mueller, in his infinite wisdom, chose to be on his team investigating Trump and all the people that were allied with him in the presidential campaign. And yet Demorats see absolutely no problem with this whatsoever. Here's something. This is about 4 minutes long, and this tends to explain things very well in terms of FISA and the FISA memo. Basically, it's...
You have a right to know
Trey
what
Gowdy.
happened with this FISA process and whether reforms are warranted.
The American citizens that are represented before this court have to be protected, and the only place that can protect them is the U.S. Congress.
It has been the talk of Washington for weeks, and today Republicans released a memo.
The memo reveals partisan bias at the Justice Department.
Grassley and Graham confirmed the information and went farther, revealing that information was passed from British spy Christopher Steele through an intermediary close to the Clintons and then to the State Department.
The Republican memo fairly raises questions about why certain facts were never disclosed to the FISA court.
Political dirt was used by the FBI, and they knew it was political dirt, to open a counterintelligence investigation into the other campaign.
This dossier was paid for by the Democrat National Committee and Hillary Clinton.
Stop. Which is why I say, essentially, in a nutshell, what happened is Hillary Clinton actually went out and bought a warrant to spy on a private person and an entire presidential campaign.
They hired a political opposition research firm who hired Christopher Steele, who wrote it. See how easy and straightforward that is? It tells you the source with clarity and specificity. Now contrast that with the way it was presented to the court. For reasons the Democrats can never explain, the FISA application went to great lengths to avoid identifying a material point about the financial source behind the dossier.
Okay, stop just there for a second. When we come back from the break, we got about another 5 minutes. We're going to have a break. When we come back, Hugh Hewitt from the Hugh Hewitt Show happened to write a great article about all of this in townhall.com. And I'm going to reference that article, which really assembles things wonderfully and simply, because I like clear, and I like simple, and I like truthful.
The initial FISA application in October 2016, nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party campaign in funding Steele's efforts.
The Democrats claimed Chris Steele was a reliable source, but he wound up being dismissed as a source by the FBI for two different reasons. And in addition to that, Steele's reliability It isn't the seminal issue.
By the way, did you know that one of the reasons that the FBI let him go is because he leaked? Christopher Steele leaked. And later on, that's the self-same FBI whose director, Jim Comey, would leak himself.
He didn't know the facts firsthand. He repeated what sources in Russia were telling him. So for that matter, a parrot could have been the source. If all you're going to do is repeat back what nameless, faceless people in another country are telling you, your experience and expertise aren't nearly as important as the reliability of the people you're listening to.
The DOJ and FBI had 4 opportunities to disclose these facts in the original FISA application and in each of the 3 subsequent renewal applications.
Okay, now why did he say 4 chances to do this? Because as I told you last Tuesday night, what happens is when a judge signs off on one of these warrants, they're good for 90 days. So you step back before the court, you proffer any information that you may or may not have gotten, and the court has to sign off again for another 90 days. That was done 4 times.
Over nearly a year-long period, but never did. Now the Democrats on the Intelligence Committee, who opposed the release of our Republican memo, have since prepared their own counter memo.
Every single Republican on the House Intelligence Committee voted to release the Democrat memo. Every single one.
You get what he said? The Republicans apparently don't mind the truth.
On the other hand, not a single solitary Democrat voted to release the Republican memo. Not a single one. The lead Democrat most responsible for the drafting of the Democrat memo is Representative Adam Schiff. Representative Schiff.
What do we already know about Adam Schiff that I told you earlier?
Didn't have much interest in finding out how much of the dossier was used, whether it was vetted before it was used, whether it was vetted, for that matter, after it was used, or who paid for it. Keep in mind, they went to court to keep you from finding out who paid for the dossier.
And they can't have it both ways either, can they? Think about it again. Here's what happened. The FBI, the American media maggots, all elements of the press, the Demorats, the DNC, all ganged up and they said, you have no right whatsoever to see that memo created by Devin Nunes, head of the House Intel Committee, because it would be earth-shaking. The Earth would stop rotating on its axis if it were to be released. It has classified information. We cannot absolutely do this. Everything will fall apart until the release. And then the chat after that was, that memo, it doesn't mean a thing.
American people will learn.
Which is it?
That the Democrats' memo attacks Republicans for questioning the integrity of DOJ lawyers like Bruce Orr and FBI agents like Peter Strzok, who have been either demoted or removed. The Democrats' memo also defends the integrity of Christopher Steele as a reliable and credible source, even though the FBI and Department of Justice terminated him.
In September 2016, Christopher Steele admitted to Justice Department official Bruce Orr his feelings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said he, quote, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president.
Okay, that went over official phones. And Steele admitted to Orr his feelings were, quote, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president.
After all, we only have a FISA because you consented to it. And with that consent comes the obligation of those entrusted with power to exercise that power judiciously and to answer legitimate questions when you have them. And asking questions of those in positions of power used to be something we could all agree on.
Very true. But I ask you this one final question. I don't know if you're aware, but some of the organizations recently, including the FBI and some of the alphabet organizations, said because the Nunes memo was released, that makes an excellent argument that we don't need to talk to you guys anymore. And we're going to seriously reconsider whether we'll even tell people in the House Intel Committee or various other forms of the government about what it is that we're doing. Are you fucking kidding me? And the answer is no, I'm not kidding you. Why would they make that threat? You're seeing why. Because what they were doing to you, the American taxpayer and the public, that allegedly they work for you, well, as far as they're concerned, it's the other way around. You work for them.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question that you really cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right. Oh, God.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And that's right, you are on the SHR Media Network, live and direct from the SHR Media sumptuous palatial studios, less than 2 miles from the Bill Mill, the belly of the proverbial evil beast on the left coast of the entire United Snakes of America, the capital of California, Sacramento. The capital is about 2 miles due west that way. And that is the locus of evil. Well, I'm sure the East Coast has its own locus, whether it happens to be because of the various mass holes, whether it happened, who knows, wherever the hell it is. Boston, D.C., New York. I'm voting for D.C., however. Now, I told you when I came back that I have an article that was written by Hugh Hewitt, and it came out today. And again, this is why I like to reference articles. I value honesty, clarity, simplicity, truthfulness. All of those things happen to be here in this article. And the headline from Hugh Hewitt: more on the Carter Page FISA warrant and the need for a second special counsel. My Washington Post column earlier this week, elicited some comments from a Bureau veteran of more than 2 decades, one with extensive FISA experience. And what Hugh Hewitt has done is he's bullet-pointed these and numbered these all along. Number 1. If Carter Page cooperated in 2013 to 14 in the investigation when Russian intelligence tried to recruit him, that means he had a handler in counterintelligence, an agent who worked with him in 2013 and 2014, because he cooperated and the Russians were prosecuted. The first thing that would have normally happened when Page turned up in the Trump dossier, when known to have previously been a cooperator, would have been to have his handler arrange to meet with him to talk. He'd cooperated before, and the first reaction to the new information would be that he would cooperate again. It would not have been to begin working up a FISA application on him. Page has denied that the FBI ever approached him in the summer of 2016. Number 2. In a FISA warrant on a U.S. citizen, you never rely on information that cannot be verified. If it can't be verified, it's taken out of the application. Facts and evidence. Again, Captain Obvious is sitting across the studio from me, and he's nodding his head up and down right now. Yeah, that's absolutely true, BZ. If it can't be verified, it's taken out of the application. Agents fight to keep stuff in, even when it's thinly sourced, but the lawyers at the FBI and the DOJ are constantly removing stuff that they think isn't adequately sourced. Stop. Again, if you wonder why the DOJ might be involved in this, well then, you know about the counterintelligence aspect of it, the granting of immunity, that aspect of any investigation, and now it's revealed here that, yeah, you have to go through the DOJ to get those things done, to hammer deals out through DOJ. FBI can't do that. The fact that Steele was a former MI6 agent is nice, but it's not a substitute for being able to verify the sources that gave Steele the information. Doing a FISA on a U.S. citizen based on the premise that he's engaged in espionage is a huge step, and it's not done on thin sourcing. The fact that Steele was retired and working for pay, as opposed to being active and working only on behalf of his government, the United Kingdom, by the way, that works against Steele's credibility. He's being paid to produce shaded information, not necessarily truthful information, which would be the presumption if he was still an active MI6 agent. So it normally would have been required for him to identify his sources, not keep them confidential. If he was an active MI6 agent, then you would respect his need to keep his sources confidential for future work. But he's not acting on behalf of the British government, so that deference no longer applies. His information would not be accepted simply on his say-so. He's selling his services, and he wants to get paid. So he has a motivation to provide what his patron, i.e., what his client, is looking for. Number 3. The Grassley memo says that the FISA renewal in January 2017 states the FBI disclosed that Steele was terminated as a source in October 2016 without specifying the exact date. The date exists. There is a source termination document in his file, and it has a date on it. If he was terminated before the FISA application was submitted on October 21st, 2016, that is a massive red flag problem, the kind that gets people fired and maybe even prosecuted. If the FISA application went forward with information from Steele after the date Steele was terminated as a source, that's a violation of Federal Bureau of Investigation policy and would result in termination. The fact the date is omitted in Grassley's memo, as if it wasn't in the underlying document Grassley or his staff read, is a noteworthy omission because the date was known when the January 2017 renewal disclosed the termination to the FISA court, and its omission is almost certainly not accidental. This is the same kind of purposeful omission as the failure to specify that the Clinton campaign and the DNC paid for Steele's work. 4. Whenever a key source in a FISA application is terminated for misconduct, you do not wait for the next renewal to inform the FISA court of the development. The policy is to file a disclosure of the change in circumstances with the judge who issued the warrant and leave it to the judge to determine whether the new information requires rescinding the warrant. Only the judge knows whether the information from that particular source was crucial in the judge's determination that the application made a sufficient showing to justify issuance of the warrant. It was shocking to see that the termination of Steele was only disclosed to the FISA court at the time of the first renewal, approximately 3 months after Steele was terminated. Number 5. Whenever a FISA source is terminated for misconduct, that source's information cannot be relied upon in the renewals. Normally, the renewal is justified based on intelligence that is gathered during the first 90 days. I remember I told you that back on Tuesday. It's normally not necessary to rely on the original source as justification to renew the FISA warrant unless your surveillance is not turning up information about the target's foreign entanglements. You only rely on the original PC, probable cause, if your surveillance is not providing you new PC information. But you would never be allowed to rely on a terminated source's information to continue PC when the surveillance is not providing new PC. So it makes no sense, as stated in Grassley's memo, for the Bureau to continue to rely on Steele's dossier information as probable cause in the 90, 180, or 270-day renewals if there is no new if there is PC generated by the surveillance. There's no need to use the terminated source. Stop. What is this telling you? They went fishing, and they didn't get any fish. And they went back to the court and said so, essentially back to predicating all the new renewals on the same shit they had the first time. It's a violation of policy to rely on the information from a terminated source as a substitute. The fact that the Bureau continued to present the Steele information in the renewal suggests, though it is not necessarily conclusive, that there was insufficient intelligence coming out of the surveillance to provide new PC, probable cause, to continue the surveillance. Dense, but I'm going to keep bombarding you with this because somehow, somewhere, the people in the United States of America need to rise up and say, this shit has got to stop. Number 6, the idea that stultifying. Listen. The idea that a Yahoo News article could be cited in a FISA application as, quote, verification of a source's information is laugh out loud funny. If such a claim was made in a regular FISA application, the first line of legal review would call and ask if that was included as a joke. The story in question... Okay, stop. I'm going to stop there just for a second. Because, again, Captain Obvious was holding up his hand over there in the corner and saying, BZ, do it. Do the logical extension. Talk about Captain Obvious. Talk about the captain in the room, and that's this. Do you see how now everyone that is thought of to be involved in this is becoming more involved? The FBI had a crap piece of paper their fingerprint is on it. The DOJ said, okay, their thumbprint is on it too. And then all the FBI attorneys, they had their thumbprints and their fingerprints all over the document, the FISA application, the affidavit. And the DOJ attorneys, because they had to look at it too, allegedly. They have all their fingerprints on this document as well that get shipped over to a judge. And you remember Judge Contreras, who recused himself? My guess would be he might be the judge who signed this. Now, you have to ask yourself, I wonder if Contreras is that judge. Now, we have a pretty good idea why he would recuse himself from the Michael Flynn trial, which is what he did. But whoever signed that affidavit must either actually be the biggest numbskull on the face of the planet, or that judge is absolutely livid right now that you made a total asshole out of this guy. 7. When it became known that the information in the September 23, 2016 Yahoo News article matched pretty much exactly the information provided by Steele to the Bureau, and Steele denied having any contact with the press on the subject of his work, that would normally have led to a decision that Steele be polygraphed to see if he was being deceptive in his denial. If he'd been polygraphed and passed, that would have been disclosed as the basis for believing his denial. The fact that he wasn't polygraphed is a big tell that the fix was in. They were afraid that he would fail. The idea that an agent would write in the application, as Grassley's memo says, quote, the FBI does not believe Steele directly provided this information to the press, relying only on Steele's denial of having done so, MI6 or not, is absolutely laughable. Again, it goes back to the gravity of seeking a FISA warrant on a U.S. citizen and a series of U.S. citizens. Could be me, could be you. As you can see, veterans of the FISA process have collective eyebrows raised, and both this Bureau veteran and the retired federal judge quoted in my column have much more recent FISA experience than mine from the Reagan-era DOJ. It doesn't seem likely to me that AG Sessions can avoid appointing a second special counsel, one wholly independent of the investigation underway by special counsel Mueller, which, to repeat, should continue without interference. Hugh Hewitt and I tend to disagree about that. As Secretary Clinton told me in our conversation last year, you can keep two thoughts in your mind at the same time. Thought one, the Russians attacked our election. They hacked John Podesta's and the DNC's emails, Stop. Hacked. The Russians attempt to do shit like this all the time. How was John Podesta hacked? John Podesta was hacked because there was a phishing attempt, and he was sufficiently fucking stupid to click a link in an email. Don't you do that, especially from a source you cannot readily identify. So let's tell a little bit more of the truth on that. Played havoc with social media, etc., and everything about that attack needs complete investigation. Okay, I agree. They did it then, they're going to do it again. They're going to do it this September. Thought two, there is at least the appearance of impropriety regarding the treatment of the server investigation and the obtaining of the Carter Page FISA warrant. A special counsel was needed for the investigation into the first issue. A special counsel is also needed for an investigation into the second one. Okay. Now, when these things were occurring, who was the director, by the way, that just stepped out not long before Jim Comey? Because Jim Comey hadn't been there as FBI director for years and years and years. Mueller preceded Comey as well. Let's listen to this from Representative Matt Gaetz.
It is the biggest national scandal by far in our lifetime.
Wait a minute, this actually happened from our Justice Department and this FBI?
Folks, breaking news here. We were going to start with the House vote on the stopgap budget bill with Congressman Gaetz. He has just informed us that he and other members of Congress have just been given a 4-page memo that is extremely disturbing. He joins me now, Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida.
The authentication processes that are
laid out in the memo, they are so laughable that they would never withstand scrutiny from the public.
Right, a Yahoo News article. Well, that's certainly credible.
The FBI also knew that the dossier's author, Christopher Steele, was an inflamed partisan. So assessing all of this, no rational person could, in good faith, treat the Trump dossier as fact.
By the way, you wouldn't think that I have more information about this, would you?
Every Democrat on the
Because I do.
Intelligence Committee voted against making this information available to members of Congress.
The FBI repeatedly never told the FISA judges that the phony, salacious dossier was financed by Hillary Clinton and the DNC.
Folks who've been paying attention and watching would likely find the contents of this memo very interesting, very revealing, and just essential to the way our government interacts with the duly elected president of the United States.
They used a Hillary Clinton campaign, bought and paid for dossier.
Without the Steele dossier that was funded by the DNC and Hillary Clinton's lawyer, the FBI would have never applied for this FISA warrant.
There has been.
And I'm going to remind you something. I'm going to remind you about something. I read an article to you last Tuesday. I'm going to read another article and refer to it today by another source. And it goes up to and including Mr. Obama. If you're wondering where that linkage is or was, oh, please stay tuned.
A real attempt to undermine this president, and it has come from the scariest of places.
Steele actually told DOJ employee Bruce Orr that he was, quote, desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president.
The second thing you've got to evaluate is the manner in which evidence presented to the court was corroborated.
The FBI used Steele's leak to Yahoo to corroborate the dossier created by the same person, Steele.
This is a time for us to come together as Americans, not to fight, but to acknowledge what went wrong, fix the problem so it doesn't hurt us going forward, and then to make sure it never happens again.
Isn't it funny? The Japanese have a saying, and it's been around for quite some time. And the Japanese saying is this: fix the problem, not the blame. But I can also say that when you're dealing about a problem as serious as this, in terms of my opinion being an attempted soft coup and perhaps even a continuing soft coup on the entire nation, then yeah, it's very important to fix the problem and then fix the blame and find out how it started, who knew, and when. Now, does anyone doubt for a moment that during this time, Barack Hussein Obama was sufficiently stupid to not have his finger on most every aspect of what was going on in his cabinet, in his agencies, when all of this was undergoing? I'm not that silly to think that he didn't know. Barack Hussein Obama is not an unintelligent man. I suspect he's a psychopath, but I don't think that he's an unintelligent man. Information just came out recently with the new load of texts that were revealed. FBI lovers' latest text messages. Obama wants to know everything. Isn't that funny? And Fox is going to bone me again on this, I can see. Let's see if I can just play this and take it back. Go.
This is a Fox News alert. A lot of late-breaking developments tonight on that memo at the House Intelligence Committee. Now, Republicans are responding to the Democrats' claim a little over an hour ago that they did not get the chance to review the latest memo sent to the White House, that it was tweaked and substantively changed before it went to the White House. So we've been talking about this memo. It reportedly involves surveillance of the Trump campaign. Here's what we're hearing tonight from a committee spokesperson. Quote, the committee minority is now complaining about minor edits to the memo, including grammatical fixes.
Okay, now that was a little bit older. Let's go now to the new information. Newly revealed text messages between FBI paramours Peter Strzok and Lisa Page include an exchange about preparing talking points for then FBI Director James Comey to give to President Obama, who wanted to, quote, know everything we're doing. Stop. Connecting dots. Discovering who knows what, when, at what time. Let's reread that because I ask you, have you heard any of this from ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, and certainly not on CNN. Newly revealed text messages between FBI paramours Peter Strzok and Lisa Page include an exchange about preparing talking points for then FBI Director James Comey to give to President Obama, there's a link, who wanted to, quote, know everything we're doing. The message from Page to Strzok was among thousands of texts between the lovers reviewed by Fox News when that dump, the second dump or third dump, came out. The pair both worked at one point for Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe of alleged collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Page wrote to Strzok on September 2nd, 2016, about prepping Comey because POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. POTUS, President of the United States. According to a newly released Senate report, this text raises questions about Obama's personal involvement in the Clinton email investigation. I have 3 articles coming that are worthy of review. I'm going to hold off on that just for a second. We're coming up to the break, and I'm going to continue with this article. In texts previously revealed, Strzok and Page have shown their disdain for Republicans in general, as well as Trump, calling him a fucking idiot, among other insults. Among the newly disclosed texts, Strzok also calls Virginians who voted against then FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe's wife for a state Senate seat ignorant hillbillies. So, Virginians, if you're listening, according to the FBI and this individual and Peter Strzok, who represents the FBI, you're fucking hillbillies. Good times. The text came from Strzok to Page on November 4th, 2015, the day after Jill McCabe lost a hotly contested Virginia state Senate election. Okay, we'll fill you in on that in just a second. Strzok said of the result, disappointing, but look at the district map. Loudon is being gentrified, but it's still largely ignorant hillbillies. Good for her for running, but curious if she's energized or never again. McCabe's wife gave mucho dinero to Virginia governor, Demorat Virginia governor, because she's a Demorat, he's a Demorat, and money exchanged. And this has linkage with the investigation. Now, Jim Comey, in his infinite wisdom, Andrew McCabe, does that ring a bell? The guy that just recently retired because, again, he could hear hell and sense hell was approaching him. So he got out of Dodge, so to speak. And again, it's all about the details, the dovetailing, how this all comes together. And if you had to say the word conspiracy, I can't think of any other word for it. Again, I'll say it's warranted, in my opinion, of at minimum one of the best and again, in my opinion, one of the most easily proved RICO cases that the federal government could ever take. But if you went there, it would include so many people that don't want to be included. And one of the reasons that I'm suspecting that when all of this shite is done, that you may not actually see much occur is due to BZ's DC axiom. And what that is you never want to go after the current people in charge, your predecessors, because the people who follow you will go after you for what you've done. And, hey, you wouldn't want anything like that to happen, would you?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey guys, this is Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Check us out every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network.
And this is Sackhead Clint as the best-looking one of the bunch. It's my duty to remind you to check us out on our YouTube channel.
And don't forget to check us out on the SHR Media Facebook page. The best-looking one? Really? You going to go there?
Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the SHR
Voters' Choice.
Media
I have the award.
Fine.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
And Sackheads BZ.
Wait, I'm Sean.
No, I'm Sean.
All right, listen, we'll figure this out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the
Where the hell is Clint?
On the SHR Media Network, www.shrmedia.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Now, right back to this amazing show right here on the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the last segment of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. And I am broadcasting in the very amazing SHR Media Studios, Captain Obvious has a chair in the corner. He's drinking a beer now. What he did is he went into the SHR refrigerator. We actually do have a refrigerator. And he went around to go and use the restroom. He told me he had to go pee. That's fine. I didn't think that he would tap the damn refrigerator because he came out with a beer. But he already opened it, so, hey, Captain, that's yours. All right, you just continue to do what you were doing. Now we know that apparently some things are leading up to Obama because it was clear that Obama wants to be kept in the loop with regard to what Comey and the FBI are doing in this investigation, memo, dossier, etc. Let's go back to what I told you last Tuesday as well. There's a guy who's a former U.S. district attorney. His name is Andy McCarthy. He writes in the National Review. And what I would like to remind you of, so that if this comes up, you can tell people about this as well. If someone happens to come up to you and say, "That's bullshit, man. Obama was not involved at all." Okay, how about this? What is suggested is that Obama had to make sure that Hillary Rotten Clinton was not indicted because what led to her would lead back to him. The email exchanges between Obama and Clinton most certainly contained classified information due to the nature of the relationship between a president and a secretary of state, and because the Obama administration refused to disclose the emails on Hillary Clinton's homebrew server, through telephones that were not secured, through a server that wasn't secured, through an email that wasn't secured. If classified information was criminally mishandled by Clinton, it certainly would have been mishandled on the other end by Obama. If Clinton was charged, Obama's involvement in the scandal would be glaringly obvious. Text messages from anti-Trump and pro-Clinton FBI employees Peter Strzok and Lisa Page reinforce, and we know now, which is why I read that article, it reinforces McCarthy's argument. All intertwined, all connected, all goes together. I wanted to have you hear this as well. This is our lovely commander-in-chief, and he happened to say this to, I think he was talking to Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday.
Not talk to the Attorney General about pending investigations. I do not talk to FBI directors about pending investigations. We have a strict line and always have maintained it, previous presidents.
Just to button this up.
I guarantee it. I guarantee that there is no political influence.
He doesn't even want the dude, Chris Wallace, to even ask him any more questions. He doesn't like to be questioned.
In any investigation conducted by the Justice Department or the FBI, not just in this case, but in any case.
And she will be
full stop, period.
And she will be treated no differently?
Guaranteed, full stop. Nobody gets treated differently when it comes to the Justice Department because nobody is above the law.
Even if she ends up as the Democratic nominee.
How many times do I have to say it, Chris? Guaranteed.
Finally, we've seen in this campaign, I think both among some Trump voters and among some...
Okay, and that was good old Barack Hussein Obama basically saying, no, I don't lie. I don't lie, and don't ask me, and by the way, I don't lie. And don't say that I don't lie, because I already told you, Chris, you moron, that I don't lie. Now, I promised tonight that I'd talk about this information as well. It's like, where does the news stop? And the answer is, for a dude like me that lives politics day by day, these are like swollen times. And again, why I can't manage to stuff enough information into a 2-hour show. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I don't know how I would do it. Because it would be like having a damn job for me, because I research everything before I come on the air. Show prep to me is everything. Sound is everything. I told you all about that. But I like to have everything prepped. I like to have my audio cuts, blah, blah, blah. I was actually thinking, because of it's going to be like this from now until fucking ever. I was thinking that if I really wanted to get a fraction of the stuff that I want to talk about out, I should do a 1-hour daily show. And I would at least have 5 hours, contiguous hours, during the week so I could be timely with regard to what happens. I've kind of been thinking about that. The wifely wife, because I'm a retired dude, is not such a great fan of that. And again, I may not be such a terrible fan of that because it would mean that I would have to drive 20 minutes from her house over to the studio here, set up everything else, and I'd have to do that for a minimum of 1 hour every day. It's still kind of in the back of my brain housing group. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to attack that, but that's one of the things that I've been considering recently because I think things are about to change at the SHR Media Network. Don't tell anybody I told you, okay? Shh, under your hat. Shh, quiet. Captain Obvious, you didn't hear anything, did you? No, he's still drinking his beer. I told you I'd talk about this story. This is from the Gateway Pundit. After braving 35, because there's another scandal that everyone needs to be talking about that no one is talking about in the realm of the American media maggots, right? After braving 35 radiation treatments, cancer-stricken FBI informant exposes plot to benefit Clinton Foundation. And this tends to confirm everything that you were thinking about the Clinton Foundation. It's all pay to play. A 5-year-old would know this. The Demorats don't know this. The DNC doesn't know this. Certainly the Clintons cannot know this because it's just not true. And the American media maggots, they don't believe it. The Hill's John Solomon. Stop. 2 people I told you that were at least one person that I told you need to go to is Sarah Carter of sarahcarter.com or .net. I'm not sure which. But she frequently writes in concert with this author, John Solomon. And I think he writes at The Hill. The Hill's John Solomon reports the Uranium One informant Douglas Campbell broke his silence on a Russia plot to steer millions of dollars to the U.S. in an effort to benefit the Clinton Foundation. Now it's going to get better. Why? When this was happening, who was the FBI director? Captain Obvious he's over there. I see him. I can't put a camera on him, but he's over here going, I know. Who was the FBI director during the Uranium One issue when Hillary Rodham Clinton was Secretary of State and also was co-running the Clinton Foundation and the Uranium One scandal erupted? Who also had his fingerprints on all of this and had to know what was going on? That would be current Special Counsel Robert Mueller, former director of the FBI. And anyone wonders why I and other clear-thinking individuals question the credulity and the veracity of Robert Mueller's CV in the past. John Solomon writes, an FBI informant connected to the Uranium One controversy told 3 congressional committees in written testimony that Moscow routed millions of dollars to America with the expectation it would be used to benefit Bill Clinton's charitable efforts while Secretary of State Hillary Clinton quarterbacked a reset in U.S.-Russian relations. Do you remember that Russian button? That reset? We need to reset. So who are the people that love the Russians? As I said, more and more it's being proven that it was not Trump or any of his cohorts. It was the Demorats and the Clintons, right? Because
that was easy.
Wasn't it? Sure it was. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. The informant, Douglas Campbell, said in the testimony obtained by The Hill that he was told by Russian nuclear executives that Moscow had hired the American lobbying firm APCO Worldwide specifically because it was in position to influence the Obama administration and more specifically Hillary Clinton. Campbell said Russian nuclear officials, quote, told me at various times that they expected APCO to apply a portion of the $3 million annual lobbying fee it was receiving from the Russians to provide in-kind support for the Clintons' global initiative, he added in the testimony. The contract called for 4 payments of $750,000 because when you're playing with the big boys, you gotta play with big boy money, right? Over 12 months, APCO was expected to give assistance free of charge to the Clinton Global Initiative as part of their effort to create a favorable environment to ensure the Obama administration made affirmative decisions on everything from Uranium One to the U.S.-Russia Civilian Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. Stop. What is the deal with Russia and uranium? I can describe it very easily to you. There's a little winky country called Kyrgyzstan, and it happens to be under the aegis of Russian influence. Russia wants to curb, to kill and keep the market on uranium. It wants to control it because whoever controls uranium controls all nuclear reactors, medical facilities, X-ray devices, which is also used in the military if you want to X-ray wings and important parts on aircraft. And, of course, nuclear weapons, because whoever controls uranium controls the ability to convert uranium into plutonium and other fissionables. And Russia wants to corner that market in perpetuity, and so they tried. Did they not? Of course they did. Campbell's resolve to expose Clinton corruption is nothing short of inspiring. The FBI informant braved 35 intense radiation treatments after being diagnosed with cancer during his time with the FBI and still testified for 4 hours. Stop. By the way, something you ought to know is this informant wants to talk publicly, and he's been a verifiable CI for the FBI and has been producing excellent work for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, maybe 10 years. No, he's been providing verified work as a CI for 30 years, which is why the FBI continued to use him. Things have been relatively quiet on the Uranium One front since Justice Department officials in the District of Maryland announced Mark Lambert of Mount Airy, Maryland, would be indicted with 11 counts related to foreign bribery. The charges stem from an alleged scheme by Lambert to bribe Vadim Mikarin, a Russian official at JSC Technoport, Tenex. Circa reporter Sarah Carter, her name again, previously reported on the background of APCO Worldwide Incorporated, the consulting firm with ties to the Clinton family that lobbied on behalf of Russian nuclear giant Tenex in relation to the Uranium One deal. Circa reports, and you should go to Circa and read that website. I certainly do. Roughly $3 million in payments from 2010 to 2011 were made to APCO Worldwide Incorporated, which is described on their website as the second largest lobbying firm in the United States. Longtime Clinton supporter and APCO CEO Marjorie Krauss signed the continuing contract on April 12, 2010 with Tenex as the Russian company's top executive businessman from Russia, Vadim Mikarin, was being investigated by the FBI for kickbacks and bribery involving American companies, according to the APCO Tenex contract and court documents obtained by Circa. Tenex is a subsidiary of the Russian state-owned nuclear giant Rosatom, according to financial filings of the company. In a head-scratching statement, APCO Worldwide Incorporated claims they had nothing to do with the Clinton Uranium One scandal. Right. Absolutely nothing to do with it. Now, here is another article. This is specifically by John Solomon of The Hill. Uranium One informant makes Clinton allegations to to Congress. And let's see if perhaps this will be cooperative
Campbell,
with me.
An undercover FBI informant who spent years working inside Russia's nuclear industry, told Congress that Moscow was sending millions of dollars to an American lobbying firm. It was understood that the money would be used to benefit Bill Clinton's charitable efforts, while his wife Hillary worked to reset U.S.-Russian relations as Secretary of State. Campbell also provided evidence that Russia was assisting Iran's illicit nuclear program at the same time the Obama administration was clearing the way for Moscow's state-controlled nuclear company to win billions of dollars in new uranium sales inside the United States. According to Campbell, Russian executives boasted during vodka-fueled meetings about, quote, how weak the U.S. government was in giving away uranium business and were confident that Russia would secure the strategic advantage it was seeking in the U.S. uranium market, unquote. For The Hill, I'm Allison Spann.
So you have to ask yourself, you always ask yourself, a thinking human being asks yourself, so why would the United States want to give away a good portion of its uranium to Russia? And who had their fingerprint on this? Why would you want to do that? That jeopardizes America and its security and its safety. What do we know? Just as Frank Underwood has stated numerous times in the TV series House of Cards, the likes of which he will never be on again because he's, well, Kevin Spacey. He said in D.C. it's all about the money and the power. And between the two, it's always about the power. With the Clintons, it's about both of those things. An FBI informant connected to the Uranium One controversy told 3 congressional committees in a written statement that Moscow routed millions of dollars to America with the expectation that it would be used to benefit Bill Clinton's charitable efforts while Secretary of State Hillary Clinton quarterbacked a reset in U.S.-Russian relations. Amazing how that works out. Is it not? Now, the Grassley, I've got about 5 minutes left before the end of the show. Now, the Grassley-Graham memos have come out recently. And the Demorats have said something similar to, well, look, Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham reveal that it really is all the evil Republicans' fault, and it fills in holes that Nunez completely left open, except if you actually get in there and read the memo, which is longer in nature than the original Nunez memo was, you can see that it provides information that the Nunez memo did leave out, but it ain't beneficial to the Demorats at all. And also, Grassley happens to point out that the FBI little paramours, their lovers, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, during that Clinton email probe, what were they doing at the same time? That's right. They themselves were using private devices to communicate. Oh, wait, isn't that what Hillary Clinton was accused of? I'm pretty sure that that's true. Pretty damn sure.
This is another Fox News alert. We're getting late word tonight on reaction to text messages thought lost, but just found. At the center of bias allegations against 2 former members of the Mueller special counsel team. Questions surrounding the FBI. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is here tonight with how all this came together. Good evening.
Now, if there's one thing that I have to say that has been proven to me time and again, if you happen to see on Fox News or any place else some kind of a story that was written or is being presented by Catherine Herridge, you can pretty much take that to the bank. So let's go back to the original article that I was going to read to you, indicating that the same thing that these 2 folks were investigating Hillary Clinton for, they were doing themselves. You can't write this shite. It writes itself. You, in the most imaginative fiction author today, and I read a lot of them, I don't think he or she could possibly assemble crap like this in such a wide and far-ranging scale ever. FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page may have used personal accounts to send official records to each other about the Hillary Clinton email probe in 2016, even as the Bureau investigated her for a similar practice. According to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, quote, it appears that Strzok and Page transmitted federal records. Let that sink in, because now we have information to indicate that Peter Strzok was sending texts from the interior of a skiff, something that, had I done, I'd be doing federal time for. It appears that Strzok and Page transmitted federal records pertaining to the Clinton investigation on private, non-government services. The Iowa Republican wrote in a letter Thursday to FBI Director Wray. Just when you think it couldn't get more worse for the Demorats and the people whose forces are arrayed against Donald John Trump, it gets worse. It is important to determine whether their own similar conduct was a factor in not focusing on and developing evidence of similar violations by Secretary Clinton and her aides. Grassley said, Captain Obvious over in the corner is doing this to me right now. Nodding his head, saying, yep, that's exactly true. During the campaign, the FBI investigated Clinton's use of a private email server instead of a secure government email account while Secretary of State. Then FBI Director James Comey decided against recommending prosecution, but faulted Clinton and her associates for being extremely careless with classified information. Because we know, what do we know? What do we know? We know the fix was in. The fix is in whenever a Clinton is involved. Male or female, dick or vagina, it is immaterial. The fix is always in. And as I said before, here's how I sum it all up. Because here's what really happened in all of this. And oh, is there so much more coming? What happened is Hillary Clinton actually went out and purchased, she bought a warrant to spy on a private person and an entire presidential campaign. That's it in a nutshell.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me, you can go to my blog, which has not been very active these days because I've been putting material together for the show, which to me takes precedence now. You can go to my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. You can contact me on Twitter at bzep, or you can send me hate mail like everybody else does, so why should you be any different? bz at shrmedia.com. Because actually, someday I should read some of the emails. Some of them are pretty damn embarrassing. There's a lot of S words and a lot of F words in these things. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Company, the Skunk Works, and also by Boeing. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And of course, my newest sponsor, Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be personally consorting, guaranteed, take it to the bank, in less than 1 hour. Thank you ever so much for following me for the past year, my past anniversary. Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening in podcast. Thanks for being involved in chat. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.